Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Between Realities VR podcast. I left you guys in suspense there for a minute, but
yeah, I was like, did Alex forget what we're doing?
I forgot the name of our show. I forgot this. I forgot it all.
I know that's not true.
No, it's really not. But there's a lot of pressure, man, when you're up here on the big stage.
Right.
There's a lot of pressure to get things right. So every now and then, even folks like me succumb to it. And I know it's hard to believe, everybody, but it is the reality of the situation.
Even Alex VR. Yep.
But barely. Okay.
Yes.
Well, let's establish that. It's a rare occurrence. Anyway, hey everybody, welcome to the Between Realities VR podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here with us to bear witness to another fantastic episode where we are going to dive in and talk a lot about virtual reality, all of our shared passions, and whatever else happens to pop up during the conversation. My name's Alex VR, right? Skiva already said that, and I've already said Skiva is Skiva. So hey, Skiva.
How's it going, dude?
Pretty good.
Heck yeah. Pretty
good. It's a pretty intense time right now. A lot of people are getting their MetaQuest Pros.
Yes.
Like it's happening. Like everybody's got their hands on them. It's out. And it's probably a good time to mention this is a pre-recorded episode, right?
Yes.
We're not live today.
Yes.
And that's just been our year.
It has been, and there will be a few more of these, especially in November, because November is a nutty month for us.
Yep.
Like I'll be in 4 states and 2 countries.
Yep. It's crazy.
So, yeah, in 1 month, and you're going to be all over the damn place.
Yep.
So we got to do what we got to do, but we are, we're doing it for the good of virtual reality. So.
That we are. And, it's just like, I feel like when you do a weekly podcast, it should just be coming out every week, no matter what.
Absolutely.
So sometimes you pre-record. Exactly. And here we are. Yep. So maybe you're here watching the premiere with us on YouTube right now, and that's great. That's definitely our favorite place to see the show. Maybe you're catching this after the fact over on uploadvr.com, because guess what? We are Upload VR correspondents here at Between Realities. That's right. We jumped into bed with Upload, and so far we're having a good time. So that's really awesome that you're seeing us on Upload, and you're welcome to stay right there and just enjoy being there on Upload VR. Or maybe you're watching this or listening to this the audio, right? Like where do you host all of this, Skiva?
So Anchor is the main platform, which you can also see video on there as well, or just audio. But we're also on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, pretty much anywhere you can get a podcast that people know about. We should be there, and if not, if we're missing somewhere, let us know, and maybe we'll go over there.
All right. Man, I guess we kind of are starting to establish a little bit of like a beginning of the show cadence, so to speak.
Yeah, years later.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like, okay, like a lot of times people have this like scripted, like when we do stuff with GT, like, you know, you watch the GT stuff, well, not anymore, not with the crew cast.
Right.
But the old crew cast, he had like a whole thing, whole spiel. Seb.
Yeah. How do you script like 7 or 8 people, right?
Yeah, impossible. Yeah. He now he just goes live without telling anybody.
Yeah, and if you don't know what we're talking about, there's a podcast called the VR Crewcast, hosted by Gamertag VR, but there are like 8 plus of us.
I think 8 of us.
Me and Alex are there, and Wes and Roots from Virtual Strangers, and Eric Masher from Q2C VR Gamer, and sadly it's Bradley, and Beardo Benjo, and sometimes Jose. He's going to be a regular Jose from Reboot Imagine, and like it's a whole squad of people, and we just go on there and
from F Reality podcast, by the way. So shout out to Jose and Adam Bombadi for being the new I guess anchors or hosts, co-hosts of the F Reality podcast. Pretty cool to see.
It is good stuff.
Yep. So if this is your first time over here on Between Realities, let me break it down for you. We have guests on this show. All right. We always do an episode, and we always have a guest. That's 2 things that you can guarantee.
Almost always. Usually premieres will be just us.
Oh, but, yeah.
Season premieres.
We didn't even did we do one this season? I don't even know. I don't know.
We did, but we had
Quicksilver came in.
Yeah, we had QUIKCOSPLAY come in, and she was actually sitting here in the studio with us because she was rolling through town. So that was
a unique and fun thing.
It was.
I hope we can do more of that in the future.
Yeah, me too. That'd be great.
To get another soundboard thing.
With more inputs.
Yes, with more inputs. Good time to mention Patreon and channel memberships.
Yes.
Please help us. All right. So today's guest, we're not gonna keep her waiting in the wings any longer. This is a lovely lady who we met at AWE?
I believe it was AWE.
At AWE, and got to chatting and realized that she is doing a lot of work on the side of inclusivity and making sure that VR and AR applications are accessible to people, and doing everything that she can to empower women in the space. And she's just like an advocate for advocacy. She's doing a lot. So let's bring her on to talk about it. Please welcome to Between Realities, Ashley Coffey.
Hello.
Hello,
Thank
Ashley.
you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, we're
Mrs.
excited
Coffey.
to have you.
It is a pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all are amazing. It feels like yesterday we were in California.
It does. That was super fun, and I cannot wait, honestly, for that expo again. Like, if I really think in the future, because we're about to start expo season again, right? We're just finishing up this year's, and then it starts very early in January with CES, which is going to be dope. But for me, the best VR expo there is AWE, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm stoked to go back again.
We talk about it often, how AWE was like the highlight of all of our travels in this past year, and it's probably going to hold true for the remainder of the year. What are your feelings on that, Ashley?
Yeah, it was amazing. Absolutely magical. And also, I might see you at CES, actually. So keeping my fingers crossed on that one. I'll be there on behalf of my job. But yeah, AWE I felt was really good. I'm actually working with Sonia. She is one of the head of programming. We're working on integrating a social good track. Because last year, whenever we were kind of looking through the development track, and we wanted to make sure the information gets to the audience that needs to hear it the most. So trying to shift the way the tracks are focused to have more of an emphasis on the social good within the space. Because I think there's a lot of good things happening that developers and designers don't really know that's happening. And what a perfect world for all of it to kind of intersect. So I'm so excited for next year.
Wow, that's great.
Super cool.
Yeah, that is awesome. And, we know Hasko very well. Yep. She's obviously been a champion in the space for years now. And it's cool to hear that you are collaborating with her on so this is AWE programming that you're talking about then?
Yes. Yeah. She's amazing. And she just knocked it out of the park last year.
Yeah, she did.
So, this year, so much fun, such a great, diverse, group of people. And of course we got to connect, which was incredible. Right. It was really well done. It was a really good way to integrate back into conferences after being away for 2 years. I think we've all kind of gotten over dipping our feet back into what does conference behavior look like? And AWE was okay, we're back. Let's connect. Let's have fun. Let's get back to some type of normalcy. There's no normal anymore. It's just creating our own journey. But yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, it was really good. And I have to say, one of my favorite moments at AWE was actually meeting you, because I had been we have guests on our show all the time, right? And I think I stumbled across your Twitter or something, and because anybody who's got a Quest, they're peering from underneath the headset on their profile picture, you're okay, that's a friend of mine right there. So I came across your profile, and I saw that you did your own podcast called Coffee and Code, and I was okay, she's a podcaster, she's in VR, this is someone who I should have on my radar. And I think I saw that you were going to AWE, and I was oh, well, I'm there. I hope I bump into Ashley Coffey. But I had only really seen your profile picture, we'd never had a video chat or anything like that. And, people are their profile pictures, but a profile picture kind of takes on a life of its own. It's only when you meet that person that you're able to connect that image to a person. So I didn't really know what you looked like. And I'm just looking around. I'm okay, maybe she's here, maybe she's not. I don't know. And we got to talking at the TikTok after party out back,
which was sick,
which was really intense. And there was so many people.
There was so many people.
It was swimming through a sea of people to get a drink.
It was swimming through a sea of VR and XR people. That was killer.
Straight up.
I was I need to know everyone here. It's impossible. How am I going to do this?
Straight up. But the reason why we got to talking...
People were having meetings day in to day out.
Yeah.
Yes. And who we bumped into outside, which ultimately led us to us meeting, is Mr. Jansen Fox, who we actually had on the first season of Between Realities. He was, I think, our second guest.
He was, I think, our second guest, but he may have been the very first person we ever asked to be on the show.
That is probably true.
Yeah.
Yeah. We met him at in San Francisco at an expo called VRX. Yeah, 2019, I think that was.
Is incredible. And little side note, Jansen Fox 1 is amazing too. He has a very unique skill set of being able to integrate accessibility into user design, inclusive design aspects, especially in XR. So he's on the market. So if there are any companies that he's looking for a job, I know it's a rare intersection, but wanted to put that out there because Dylan is amazing and we need more of him in the world. So I'm so glad that he was a part of your show in the first season.
Yeah, he's awesome. What a good guy.
He's a great guy.
He's super smart, real free thinker, like is able to like grasp like all kinds of interesting concepts. And I really enjoy his company, and I like when I get to see him in real life. Right. Yep. So that was great. And yeah, he was like our first, we were talking to him like, yo, we're going to be starting the show and you'd be awesome to have on.
And it's hilarious because it was just at like the lunch table, you know, like we were just like sitting at the lunch table eating food and he's there and like we're chatting and then he jumps in and we're like, hey, you're kind of cool, dude. You know, so
totally.
That happened. He was on our show. Fast forward a couple years, we're at AWE. There's Jansen Fox. I'm like, yo, what's up, man? We get to chatting, and then he introduces me to you, and he's like, oh, by the way, this is Ashley Coffey, and like, I had like a mind-blowing moment at that point because I was like hoping I would bump into you, but didn't realize that I was standing next to you in that moment. And it was like, yo, okay, I know you already, you know? And it was like a really awesome little moment, and definitely one of my highlights.
Same. I have that little like a memory clip in my mind of like, we were both looked at each other like, wait, you're Alex? Wait. Ashley Coffey Code. It was a moment.
Yeah, it was great.
It was really cool. And it's wild. I love when worlds intersect like this because I've been working with Dylan since like 2019. I've known him since 2019, but we work very closely with the XR Access Initiative. We're on the core team there. So that's part of why I was there is to get more of that message in the right place. But yeah, we need more people that can kind of bridge that gap between those communities. And he's one of those.
Yeah. So before we dive into a little bit of that, like XR Access Symposium, if I don't remember the name exactly, you can correct me later. Let's learn a little bit about you. You know, like you've been in the space, in the tech space anyway, for a long time. Tell us a little bit about like your current job and, you know, maybe a little bit of a history, like how you've gotten to where you are.
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. I'll give a little bit of a synopsis as best as I can. I'm a subject matter expert on accessible emerging technologies for the Department of Labor. And I do that through a private consultancy called Wheelhouse Group, which provides me a bit more flexibility to do awesome things like this. So part of that is we support the Partnership on Employment and Accessible Technologies, which is a great initiative to making sure people with disabilities have equitable access to emerging tech. The pandemic made it aware that hybrid work is here to stay. But with VR really taking fire and taking shape in how people are onboarded or trained, there is a huge possibility for exclusion there. So we're trying to like get in the forefront to make sure that accessibility is baked in, not thought of as an afterthought. So that's what I do, but I also have a lot of different hats that I wear. I'm very fortunate to be able to do the work that like fulfills me, but I also work in an advocacy circle promoting women in tech, making sure women in STEM have equitable pathways to careers in STEM, kind of help reducing some of those barriers. If you look at the data, it really sucks of how many women are in tech. So I'm trying to do what I can to make that change. I have a podcast, as you mentioned, called Coffey Code. That's just my for fun podcast because I love having awesome conversations with people like y'all. And Alex, thank you for coming on my show. I've had great feedback.
Best episode ever, right? Best episode ever. I know.
Yes. Let's see. I worked at Apple from like 2010 to 2016. That was a fun journey.
6 years at Apple.
Yeah.
Wow, nice.
It was when Steve Jobs was still alive too.
Nice.
Yeah, it was weird. I do remember like getting like the all employee emails like from him, which was like weird to think about, you know?
Yeah.
I was an emerging technologies librarian at the University of Oklahoma. And that was a really fun job. I got to like bridge the gap between students, faculty, staff, and like the public, since it's a public university, and helping them become comfortable with what is emerging tech, what is VR, how to stop calling them goggles.
Nice. Fighting the good fight.
But really like just like unlocking that potential there, and that was a lot of fun. So I have a really broad, you know, range of skills. I was a waitress at one point. I've worked in the food industry. I think it's such an essential thing to experience. I have nothing but respect for people in the food and beverage industry.
You're just saying that because you know that I was a server before. That's the only reason why you're saying all this right now, right?
No. Well, I can never mention it because it never really comes up in conversation. But like, those are my pathways to like where I got here, and like those matter just as much as the Apple experiences. Amen. And you know.
Yeah.
Amen. Wow, that's great. So like, I want to know more about like your VR moment, right? Like, did you grow up being into tech? Like, did you play video games growing up? A lot of us were video gamers, became VR enthusiasts. You know, that was like our pathway. But what led up to your VR moment when you were like, okay, whoa, all right, wow, we're here now?
I love that question. Thank you for asking. Yes, I was a gamer growing up. It was weird because I didn't have a lot of friends who were in my friend circle who also played games, who also were girls. So I remember having a Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64, playing some really interesting games. I don't know if anyone remembers, but there was a Barbie game for the original Nintendo. That was amazing.
I definitely don't remember that.
Yeah, Skiva wasn't really playing with Barbies when the NES was out.
I think I was done with Barbies by then.
Yeah.
But also, like, Duck Hunt was a favorite as well.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Mario. But, like, really what started to, like, change the game for me is Grand Theft Auto Vice City.
Hell yeah.
That just like changed my world of like what's possible in gaming, of just having these like random storylines. Side note, like I would do the missions, but I found more value in just like the side quests and just like hanging out, getting max wanted levels and seeing like if you can use a truck as a ramp to like style a really good exit. Like those are the cool things.
Yeah.
That was super cool because it was like that was one of the first times that I remember that we saw like a truly like engaging and deep like world, like a full world happening where people were walking by. There's conversations, there's people on the phone, there's people like working in the stores, right? Like things are happening all over the place. It's like a completely different existence, which is kind of what brings us into the VR state of mind, right? So I feel like that was a very, very important series for video games and for just immersive tech, and the concept of even like an alternate reality or a metaverse in a way.
Grand Theft Auto was the first metaverse. You heard it here.
Boom.
Confirmed.
Yep. I have to give credit where credit is due, because the unlock moment for me came courtesy of Chris Madsen from Engage VR. If people in the community may know him, he is incredible. When I was an emerging tech librarian, he gave us a introduction into Engage VR before it kind of really got to where it is now. We were looking at it for exploration on a university campus level. But if anyone has met Chris, you know how personable and present and engaged he is. I feel like he truly embodies himself in the virtual space almost exactly as he is in like real life. Even though I haven't met him, I feel like that blend is right there. But he put us through this experience, and he showed us an Alan Watts 360 video in VR.
There's an Alan Watts 360 video? How is it even possible? There was no 360 stuff when Alan Watts was alive.
No, it's a graphical representation with Alan Watts speaking with some audio as music as well.
Nice.
Visual representations of geometric spaces that challenge the way that you perceive light and shape and form and time. Wow. It was one of those experiences that like challenged me to change the way that I like view and see VR. Like, okay, how do I experience this by laying down on the floor? Or how do I experience this? Like everyone's experiencing it like sitting, right? But like, can I get up and like put myself in a dark environment? Like how can I explore this in a different way? So that was the unlock moment where I was like, this has so much potential to like really just take us to the next level. So
did you have VR experiences before that moment? Like, had you like already played Beat Saber or something like that, and then like got to there, and that's when it like really clicked, or was that kind of like one of your initial VR experiences?
Oh no, it wasn't my first. I've done like Beat Saber, and I was like, okay, that's cool. You know, gamification, right? I saw a lot of the gamification aspects, and of course, Google Earth is one of like the really cool ones. But the unlock wasn't there yet until that moment. That was like what tapped into like my creative brain, I feel like.
Nice. Well,
I need to find that because I'm a huge fan of Alan Watts. Yes, that'd be awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's some between reality stuff right there.
That is
like Alan Watts, like, you know, anything that's like talking about the nature of reality, like, and then being able to blend VR into that conversation, like that is what we are all about on this podcast. You know, hence the name, right?
Good, because that was just such a profound moment. And Chris, to this day, I tell him that moment has just stood out to me. So yeah, I'd love to hear y'all's.
Oh, okay. Well, what was your unlock moment with the headset, Skiva?
Mine was Dactyl Nightmare in the 90s.
Yeah,
the virtuality old VR system with that, you know, CRT HMD that was like mounted to a thing to hold it up, and like standing there in like a plastic circle with one gun, and like it was the first time I had ever experienced, like I was a little kid that was super into games, and you know, I mean, I thought Mario Bros, like Super Mario Bros, was like wow, look at how realistic that is. There's colors, like control the guy, and then I stepped into this thing. And it melted my brain. Like my sister was like right next to me in a separate virtuality machine. And my first VR session in the 90s was a multiplayer one. And when I saw my sister represented as an avatar in virtual space, and we were walking through these worlds together at a glorious 20 frames a second, and I shot her and she exploded, I was changed from that point on. And then it was like almost an obsession of like you know, like the Lawnmower Man and like all of the things kind of leading up to VR as we know it today, you know, and then getting a PSVR and experiencing PSVR worlds and the little Shark Tank thing, and the London Heist. The London Heist sold me. Well, after doing the London Heist, you know, I was like, "This is it. It's here now. It's here now."
The London Heist now is so awesome.
Yeah, and I was like, "This changes everything. I have to change my entire life based around this tech, because there's nothing more immersive and amazing, and that holds more potential to so many different things."
Dude, to this day, the London Heist is an experience worth doing.
Oh,
it is so awesome. It's so awesome. And do you know what we're talking about, Ashley, with the London Heist?
No idea what you're talking about. London Heist? No, I'm writing it down right now.
It's a part of the initial PlayStation VR demo discs that went out. It was called PlayStation VR Worlds, and there was like 5
Well, you had to buy VR Worlds, right? Because there was a demo disc, and that wasn't on there. But there was VR Worlds, which had like 4 different little games on it, and you had to buy that.
This.
Right? Yeah.
This. And and it's an insanely good like narrative, like I don't know, heist, like bank robbing kind of experience, where like, you know, you're getting interrogated by someone, and you're like strapped in a chair, and then you're in a car chase scene, and like there's multiple insanely good scenes, and the thing lasts like, I don't know what, like maybe 15, 20, maybe 20 minutes, something like that.
I would say it's a little longer than that, maybe
30,
I think, but it's
30 max.
30, probably about 30 minutes.
30
but
max.
It is an intense and amazing 30 minutes that brings you all over the place. Like you were saying, from being strapped to a chair with some big brute dude screaming in your face, to hanging out the side of a car with an Uzi. You know, like it's just absolutely, it blew my mind. Like the scene that still, out of all of those things, the scene that really is cemented in my brain is you're sitting at this table in this restaurant, like about to have a meeting with one of the mafia bosses or whatever, and there's a cigar on the table, and I picked up the cigar, and I didn't think this was going to work, but I was kind of like role playing it out, right? Because this is an immersive experience. And I picked up the cigar and I put it in my mouth, and I breathed in, I sucked in, and then I blew out, and smoke came out in the game, and I was like, oh my god.
Me too, bro.
What?
For real, I am right there with you. That is exactly my most memorable scene from it as well.
Whoa, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's so good. And I'm pretty sure that the ember from the thing even lights up as you.
Yeah.
So it's like fully, it's so good.
Using the microphone is a part of the immersive. Like, wow. It just blew me away.
Yep. So that was it.
Yeah.
And I'll try to make
It's ahead of its time, I feel like.
Yeah.
100%.
For sure.
100%.
Yep.
Way ahead of its time. And like I was just saying, still good to this day. If somebody's got a PlayStation VR laying around, it is worth the 20 to 30 minutes to jump in and do that. They also followed it up with a full game called Blood and Truth, right?
Yes.
Which is cool, but it's like not the magic that was captured in London Heist. Like it's ridiculously good.
It's so good. What about you?
So I'll try to make mine short. But back when I had a Nintendo Wii, I got really into modding it, and I saw a YouTube video where someone had established some head tracking by like reverse engineering the Wiimote and the sensor bar. So they were able to move their head, and when they were moving their head, there was like images on the TV that were shifting as if they were in 3-dimensional space, and it was a really convincing effect. And when I started to realize like what head tracking meant, I realized that like when I play a first-person shooter, your gun is for all intents and purposes attached to your chin. Mm-hmm. So if I want to like fire around a corner, for example, I have to like actually stick my head around the corner to pull the trigger and fire at somebody who's around
in a flat game. Yeah.
In a flat game. Mm-hmm. But head tracking allows the head to move separately from the inputs, so I could look in one direction and fire another, or stick my hands around a corner and keep my head back. And like when I realized that was a thing, that's when I started to pay attention to VR, because I saw it coming, and then I started to see videos from Facebook and like Mark Zuckerberg sitting in like an office, and I'm like, oh my God, like you're gonna be able to sit there and share space with people and talk. And it was a PlayStation VR demo that got me halfway there. I went to a Best Buy, it was set up. There was like, the Worlds demos in there. I think it was the demos though, not actual Worlds. And I went through a handful of them and loved it, and then realized that something cool was happening. Bought some time at a VR arcade and forced them to put me into a multiplayer experience, which they were reluctant to do because the only multiplayer experience that they had didn't really look that cool. And I mean, we have like this Starship Fighter game. Like, sure you don't want to do that? And I'm like, yes, put me in something multiplayer. And they did, and it was Rec Room. And when I loaded into Rec Room, a gift popped up in front of me, and I like grabbed the tab and like pulled it across like in space, and like saw the tab open up, and I was like, whoa. Okay, that's insanely awesome. I'm thinking this must have been the first time I had controllers in my hands, because I don't think the PlayStation Move, I don't think they had the moves for that PlayStation VR demo.
Probably not.
So I'm like feeling this box open with the haptics in my hand, and I was like, holy crap, that's amazing. And then some little girl runs up to me and goes for the high five. And it's when I high-fived her, and I felt it in my hand through the haptic vibration of the controller, and I realized I just high-fived someone across space and time. That was it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. We're here. Like I'm making contact with someone, like this is mind blowing. And that was the moment. It was Rec Room, the high five.
Wow.
Yep.
Rec Room, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. It stood the test of time. I feel like there's still the haptic design when you open the box.
Yes.
Of like, it feels like you're actually opening it.
Yeah, it feels
super satisfying.
Yeah, it's so satisfying. That zipper.
It really is.
Yep.
Then something pops up and you grab it and slap it on your avatar, start walking with it.
It's like, wow, loot crates might actually become fun now.
I know. And for the record, Rec Room they've really done a lot to keep expanding on that platform and keep adding stuff. Recently, they've allowed people to, I think, bring in Unity assets, if I'm not mistaken.
Big deal.
Yeah.
Horizon's about to start doing that too, where you can bring in Blender and all kinds of assets from different 3D programs, and like everyone's stepping up their game. And you got to, right? Because there's platforms out there like Neos, and while they aren't like in everyone's eye yet because they require high-end PC VR to do it, they see mobile headsets getting faster and better, and they better catch up before this stuff is accessible, so
well, like, and the MetaQuest Pro has just come out, right? Like, technically today, I think, right? Like technically today, but by Friday, it's been out for a few days.
Yeah.
And that is like, is this a headset that's more capable? Like, I mean, I guess I should probably know the answer to this, but like,
it is more capable, but
it run something like Neos, or we're still a couple generations away from
we're still a little bit further out, because technically, if you unlock this chip and you put this chip in a PC and you cooled it properly, yeah, it probably could. It's a very fast chip. But the problem with these chips is thermals, and you're putting it on a very thin device directly on your face. So they have to keep the heat down, and they have to account for battery life, and all of these different things. So this, where the chip is at right now, because of the thermal situation, yeah, probably not. So, but we're gonna get there.
Well, are you experiencing any FOMO right now with this Quest Pro?
Me?
Yeah. Are you watching people open it and be like, oh my gosh, like I wish I had one here?
I am. I definitely am, because I want all the newest headsets, and I want to be in the know. Like, I want all of the information from experience, right? So definitely, there's a lot of things about it that make me not so FOMO, right? For example, the reason I think that I still use my index as my Valve Index as a primary daily driver is because of the frame rate. Because that 144 frames a second that I get, that makes everything look so buttery smooth that it brings a level of realism to VR that no other headset's been able to touch for me. Even though the resolution's lower, that frame rate is killer.
Yeah.
The Quest Pro only does 72 frames right now. And that to me is like,
okay, right now though, right?
It's supposed to go up to 90 eventually with software, just like the Quest 2 went from 72 to 90 to 120. And I don't know that 120 is in the cards though. I've never heard them talk about it. This is these are new OLED displays, multiple displays as opposed to the one display in the Quest 2. So I don't know that if the panels can or can't do a refresh rate like that. But either way, that's an important thing to me. Right. So it makes me not so FOMO. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Plus, my index, I have pretty good color pass through, so I feel like I have some of that, even though there's no like real mixed reality stuff for it.
At all,
right?
But you can see your room.
Right. I just double click a button, and then all of a sudden I can see everything. I can grab a drink. I can like grab my phone real quick, or whatever I need. But yeah, that thin light headset that is you're able, and the controllers.
You don't. Yeah.
The controllers.
I know. That's. I want to ask Ashley, are you eyeballing the Quest Pro at all? Like, do you wish you had one? Do you think you might get one? What do you think?
I think this is Meta's response to being a competitor of the HoloLens and really strategically placing themselves in front of like contracts in terms of like government enterprise, right? They're really focused on rolling that out. And I think it's really strategic that they've launched a pro version headset. However, aside from like the cool technology there, I think a really important question that we need to be asking ourselves here is the collection of eye tracking data.
Oh, yeah.
And yes, because it's no coincidence that one of the biggest companies has deployed a consumer-friendly headset. And think of all the data points you can get from, I think I saw a percentage. It was like you get from a marketing perspective, you get 700% more data points from a VR HMD than you can from like a heat map on a 2D website. That is gold for marketers, right?
And I imagine that's probably even without eye tracking. That's just like head and hand movement.
Without eye tracking, they can identify you within seconds. A positive ID from your movements alone.
It's insane.
But that also opens up so much like opportunity for bias and just like real bad things to happen. Unintentional disability disclosure, right? Unintentional disclosure of like many things. So, I guess privacy is an illusion these days. But
honestly, that's a good way of putting it. Unintentional disclosure, because there is so much information that will be unintentionally disclosed if they're gathering that data. Like we've said so many times on the show before, eye tracking data alone, I think, is enough for a company to know you better than you know yourself.
Absolutely.
Because they'll see the subtle clues. They'll see your eye flicker when you see something you like, and they'll be like, "Ooh, that! Yeah, we saw that eye flicker."
And you don't even realize you're looking at something repetitively, and maybe that's something that interests you, and you haven't put two and two together yet.
Right.
Right. And then it takes a little bit to stew over something, and then you figure it out. But the algorithm and the data is going to tell that story very, very quickly.
And I guess the main question is that good for me as a user? Because like I love candy and hot fudge sundaes, and I guarantee I'm going to light up if you slide a hot fudge sundae in front of me every moment. But that doesn't mean I should be consuming hot fudge sundaes at every moment where I'm not eating something else, and that's the kind of the path that I could see them going. It's like, oh, this guy likes hot fudge sundaes. Let's slide them in, baby. And they just keep sliding me hot fudge sundaes. And eventually I become this huge orb filled with ice cream, you know, and that's not good for me, even though every time I'm eating one, I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I want. This is what I like. This is my thing, you know? So there's a lot of issues.
This is and we've talked about this too, but this is a major double-edged sword, because yes, we have mega corporations here that are collecting this data. They're not hiding that. They're collecting the data. They don't even let you see it. They can see about you, but you can't see it, right? I can't even see what I've spent in some of their games, never mind like all this other data that they have. I mean, but either way, they're going to be able to collect all kinds of things, tell what I like, tell this, tell that. At the same time, eye tracking is required for dynamic foveated rendering, which real quick just means that you're looking at the very center of the screen. That is rendered in full HD resolution. This little dot of the screen, everything else can be very, very low resolution. And then that moves with your eye, and everything you see is the HD version, and everything else looks like your peripheral vision in real life. So that enables headsets to then be able to produce way higher end graphics, more high fidelity gaming, more convincing virtual reality, without necessarily doing anything to the thermals of a chip.
Oh, that sounds great.
And it does. So there are two, just like the duality of life and the duality of everything, there is a huge up here and there is a huge down here. And really what this comes down to is educating people on this stuff and them caring enough to say no to these companies when that pops up in their terms of service, or they're doing things that are unethical or immoral that they don't like, and to say no, and to be able to have the self-discipline to say, I'm not buying your stuff until you change that, and you can't do that anymore. It doesn't mean you have to stay away from it forever, because if you don't fund them, they will stop, because they need money to live. Without money, there's no company. Right. So we have control, but it takes discipline from the consumer. So anyway, that's kind of my 2 cents.
Reminder to everyone listening that, like, don't forget you have influence, right? You can vote with your dollars. You can choose how you want to see that. And I think sometimes we get too like in the weeds on that to remember like the big picture. So I think that's a good reminder.
Voting with your dollars.
Thank you for reminding me on foveated rendering. I haven't heard that term since like 2018. So thank you.
Yes, and we've had foveated rendering in like the Oculus Go, for example, but it's there. And it's all the time, and it's right in the middle, and everything else is blurry, and it's just a subtle effect because you can see it all the time. But with dynamic, it changes wherever you're looking, which makes it so it's impossible to tell that it's happening.
Right.
And you only get the benefit. Frame rates go up, graphics goes up. You know, this is all a huge unlock and something we absolutely need for VR to succeed. But we also, it doesn't mean we have to give up that data. It doesn't mean we have to allow these companies to use it in ways that we don't agree with. We do have the power. Like, people are always like, I'm not going around Walmart, blah, blah, blah. Well, don't go, and they will close. I don't care how big they are. No company can survive without money. It's not possible.
Yeah.
So it's stand your ground, people.
Because you do need like a what's the word? There's like an amount of people that you need for it to be effective,
right?
You know, like there's such a good word for it, and I can't think of it right now. But like, there's a certain amount of people that you need for that to work. Like, if just me says, you know what, screw it, Facebook, you're not getting my stuff. I'm not buying your headsets anymore. That is not going to matter. Like, it literally needs to be like an awakening, like where 51% of the VR community all say, no, screw that. Yep. That's what it needs.
Yeah, but that starts with one person. Sure. And then that next person, it starts with them, and then the next person, That's how that happens. You don't look around and go, oh, everyone else is doing it, now I can do it. Like, it doesn't work that way. But
that is what we're doing right now.
It is what we're doing, but you're right. But we also need to tell people and educate people and make them care.
Yeah.
And if they don't care, cool. You know, and we don't all have the same ethics and morals and stuff. That's cool. But if enough people see it as a concern and stand up, things will change every time.
Well, and I guess it always boils down to intention, right? Like, and that's the big thing here. It's like, okay, so what's Facebook's intention by including this technology? Is it just to improve the user experience, or is their intention to harvest the crap out of that data?
But does intention right now matter? Because if it's being stored, it doesn't. Let's say Mark Zuckerberg is like, no, my intention right now is to give everyone a great experience and to use this for dynamic foveated rendering, but we're going to keep it all on the server, and we're not going to do anything with this. We're not going to sell your data. We're not going to profile you. We're not going to do any of these things. And then he gets hit by a bus, or he ends up realizing, I'm so rich, I'm just going to go buy an island and no one's ever going to see me again. Someone else walks in the door, becomes the CEO of that company. Things change really, really, really fast.
Yes.
Right? And then all of a sudden, that big bucket of data is there for that next person to decide on, or the person after, or the person after. Like, think about your data now. Think about your children, your grandchildren, all of these people that are growing up from birth with this technology tracking everything they're doing and everything they're seeing, and influencing their thoughts, influencing how they feel about things, right? And this is all huge.
So this is a great point you're making, and I agree entirely, in fact. And I certainly was not about to give Facebook or Meta, whatever you want to call them, any leniency or room or for wiggle room here. I'm basically saying that is their intention, is to store it and eventually one day have it be misused. And it would be great if a competitor could come along that had different intentions, right? Who are creating devices that are made for inclusivity or to enhance people's lives, and like doing cool stuff, instead of harvesting your data as a business platform. You know what I mean? So
I do. And all of these, all of these companies that come up with their intentions on the table and say, look, we're good. Like, just remember that can change, and it still matters that you stand up for what's right and what's not, and you vote with your dollar, and you don't take part in things that you don't necessarily, or educate people.
When do we jump ship? That's what I'm asking. Because right now we're not.
No, I know we're not, and there's some hypocriticism there. B, there's the need to be relevant and understand and have the proper exposure and to the industry that we want to grow and make better, and have some of these companies come up that don't need to do these things in order to have a sustainable business. But to educate people on it is so important, because some people just generally don't know.
For sure.
Joe and Sally Walmart go to Walmart and they pick up a Quest and they're like, oh, look, I can play games. They have no idea what they're giving up.
If we're not willing to not buy the headset, then what makes us think anybody else will?
True. Very true.
Ashley, how do you walk this line?
Very true.
Hard line to walk. Oh my goodness. With the consumer-friendly headset like the Oculus Quest 2, I think is like, I will still use that, right? I probably won't get a Quest Pro. We'll see how that works, but there's always going to be a trade-off, right, of something in exchange for something. Like, for example, Clear, the little biometric eye scanner machine at airports, right? Whenever you sign up for that, you essentially hand over your biometrics to this private company. So now I can be identified by my eyes instead of having to pull out my my ID. And for me, that's a trade-off, because I thought to myself, you know what? It's going to come to a point where right now the convenience for that specific instance outweighs my concern for where my eye information is going at this time.
So what's your concern levels when it comes to what we're talking about right now? Obviously, you're the one that even brought it into this conversation, which thank you for that, because we love to talk about this when we have an opportunity to. But where's your concern level now? Maybe you don't buy the Quest Pro, but if you want to buy any other headset from that company moving forward, it's not like they're going to pull that feature out. You know what I mean? So are you just are you going to vote with your dollar here and say, actually, if they're going to be taking that data, this is where I draw the line, or I don't know, what's your approach?
Really good question. And it's more complicated than that too, because I do take into consideration how companies are, factoring in inclusivity in their design. And I am a part of W3C Immersive Captions group, which is a really great group that we meet weekly. And they're, some of the conversations that I'm involved in are people, representatives, employees from Meta, Google, Apple, the big names are making strides to move the needle here. Privacy doesn't really come up in these discussions because it's more centered around inclusive design and trying to improve that. But I feel like we're in a strange time where our physical worlds are intersecting with our digital identities, and right now is a time to kind of determine what you want that to be. And with the data part, my concern level would be a 15 out of a 10. But the fact that no one else is on that same level, I feel like I'm on an island, but I don't want to be alarmist on it. But just the fact is, we're just really at an intersection where there aren't a lot of policy levers to enforce good actors and bad actors. Like, for example, the AI Bill of Rights came out, October 14th? And that's like a federal document. I think that's a good step in the right direction. Are people paying attention? Probably not. But I think it's important to, start interjecting that into the conversations of how we interact with technology. Because if we think about it, how we started to interact with technology, it was like novelty, right? People didn't really care about it. It was an afterthought, and people are still treating it like such. And it's a big problem. You can't continue to treat a technology like that is continuing to evolve and innovate and morph. There's going to come a point where it's just going to have so much friction. So that's what I do, hopefully, with Coffee and Code, is help demystify some of that for people so that they know that they don't have to be a techie.
Right.
To have a seat at the table for that conversation, because literally tech is intertwined in every person's life at this point.
That's some great insight. That makes great sense. And I really like everything you just said.
Yeah. So that Bill of Rights, just so we know, wouldn't have happened if there weren't a bunch of people that were like, hey, this is concerning. Yeah. Let's help do something about this.
Yeah.
So, that's fantastic. And let's work together. Oh, well, yeah. I think we're doing something.
Yeah.
Which is great, right? So it's really good. Like, people, this is why one of the reasons I have so much respect for people like Kent Bai. Right? Because he's like, this is happening. We need to take these actions, and we need to, alert people, and we got to get these things passed, and really like put together some things here to protect the future of humanity. Because sometimes people don't know these things are happening, and those people can't take action if they have no idea what's coming, right? So it's great to have people like Kent and people like all the people that are helping with all of these things that are coming in the future, right? Once we're there, it's almost too late. You got to intertwine some of these things into the progression as it happens to make it easier, because if big tech has all of the say, then that's not good.
Right. So, and I kind of feel like this is a little bit of what you're doing with all of your efforts right now, Ashley, because we're seeing this technology start to be not a novelty. It's starting to become relevant to almost everyone's life. But, a technology like VR isn't accessible to all. Now we're kind of stepping away from this tech being used as just like a toy, and cool if you can use it, congrats, and if you can't, well, sorry, but it wasn't made for you. I feel like you're taking steps to help kind of integrate accessibility options into technology ahead of time, early enough to where it can be there by the time it reaches kind of that critical mass. Am I right in saying that?
So, think of it like you're making a cupcake and you're about to eat it, and then the chef comes over and is like, oh wait, I forgot to put the egg in it, let me put it on top. You're not going to eat that cupcake, right? That's how I try to put the analogy around accessibility and design of XR.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, that is.
That's a great analogy. And, I appreciate your perspective saying this tech used to be a novelty, and now it's becoming something that's more integrated, because it's easy for me to fall into this mindset of that things don't need to be built with inclusivity in mind, because that could potentially stifle other the people who have no issue using that technology. It might stifle their ability to maximize the potential of that device, or if someone's making a game and they want people to be able to, I don't know, like Beat Saber, for example, this is a very active game. You need to have arms that can swing left, right, and up and down to play that game. That's all there is to it, and I mean, I guess there could be ways that you could try to add the egg afterwards, but that game didn't have egg built into it when they designed it. And sometimes I wonder if that's okay, is it okay that people are still making stuff for themselves or for people who are fully able-bodied or fully able to take advantage of the stuff? Or is there something that is inclusivity more important than that freedom to express and create freely?
Wow, that's a lot to unpack, and I like it. I think I mean, I'll start out here by saying that at some point in our lives, we're all going to have a disability, whether it's now planned or unplanned, right? Get hit by a bus, surgery. Some people are born with a disability and they can't change that, right? And not being able to have an equitable access to an opportunity is a problem. Disability is a social construct, right? It's about how we approach people who have different perspectives than us. And my perspective in all of this, and I hope this helps unlock other people's thought process around this, I think the biggest area for innovation lies in the outliers, the people that have been excluded for so long. Because Alex, you mentioned there are probably people out there that are adding the egg in the middle. Yes, there are a lot of people doing that. And so much so, they've developed so many good workarounds and hacks. Like, for example, immersive captioning. I don't know why, but like live closed captioning is such a hot topic in the immersive space right now. I don't know why it costs per minute to transcribe. And I don't know why platforms like Spatial are charging $10 a month for closed captions, but that's like an essential tool. So what we do is like we're taking in browsers into like Spatial or AltSpace VR, different environments, and then running stream text through that. Like developing workarounds, but people shouldn't have to do that is the case. And if you're co-designing, then you won't have that realization after the fact. Like the first time I got into a VR experience where I could see my hands were white. And I was like, oh my gosh, one, it's cool that I'm represented here, but it's not cool because the person that's entering this space isn't always going to be white.
Right.
So it's important to think of that inclusive design. And if they were co-creating and creating diversely, they would have caught that. So I just want to always like bring that to the forefront of we'll all experience a disability at some point in our lives. And there's so much value in inclusive design. I worked on a research report with Jansen Fox, as you mentioned earlier, with an XR Access. And we took a group of strangers with lived experience across the US and we assessed Spatial, AltSpace, and Engage, and Mozilla Hubs, and we assess them for their accessibility, and then show the business value in inclusive design. So there is a lot of probability there, and there's a lot of promise. I think it's just taking time for business leaders to invest in those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's really interesting, like, because for me, when you say something like, okay, and when I entered the space and I looked down and my hands were white, that's a problem because not everyone's going to be white. And I agree with that entirely. And I think it speaks to the power of virtual reality as an embodied experience and how it's not like playing a game like this. So often we make the comparison to VR experiences and like video games, but like I've played as all kinds of different characters in video games, you know what I mean? But I never really feel like that's me down there. Like the avatar in that game isn't me. I'm playing this video game. But when you put a VR headset on and you look down and you see hands, those are your hands. Like there's something so profound about a VR experience in comparison to some other avatared experiences that it's kind of hard to put my finger on, like I'm not exactly sure. Maybe I'm hitting the nail on the head right now, but it's like there's something about the immersive experience of wearing the headset and seeing your hands down underneath as you look at them that is just completely different from any other form of media.
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like at one point in the 2000s-ish, I was thinking to myself, I feel like 50% of my life is digital, 50% of my life is in person, right? So it's okay to like not really give the 50% digital attention, right? When you're like 50% alive in the real space. But now like the lines are so blurred where it's like, we're in it, like we're blended. There are no lines anymore. So I like that you kind of mentioned that.
Yeah, it is crazy. We are literally like the first era of human beings to have this relationship with technology. Like there's been technology before, but they like existed on the outside. And to your point, now it's like shifted in big time. We're like practically on our way to becoming cyborgs at this point.
Yeah, we kind of are.
Really good thing of what you mentioned, Alex, of intimacy. What does intimacy mean when it comes to VR and wearing an HMD? Like, that was such a great, mind-blowing question that I'm so glad that you brought out, because it had me thinking for like a really long time after that, which is intentional and what you were hoping.
Yes.
So thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, big companies also, I feel like, agree with this too. Like, for example, Meta is dumping so much money into their avatar system. Not the one in Horizon right now where you have no legs, right? But the one, but where they're able to bring you into a room that's surrounded in cameras and create like a super realistic, lifelike version of you that is almost impossible to tell the difference, right? And there's a reason for that, because you identify from the time you were born. You start to learn to identify with your biological avatar, right? So the disconnect there can be absolutely huge if you're not represented properly, because we really identify as this body. I mean, ultimately, is this body really even us?
But not everybody, though. Some people are born, they're like, nope, this isn't me.
No, this is true. This is true. Maybe the majority do, and that's why this is a big deal, to make sure that when you go in there, you can change your hand color. You can change what you look like. Like, this sounds stupid, but sometimes I'll build an avatar and like Ready Player Me, and I'm like, man, I'm not this skinny. Why can't I have some fat? You know what I mean? Like, come on, let me have a tummy or something. Yeah. Why? Because like, I don't know, I just identify this way. It's really, it's an interesting thing. So it's like, it's important for immersion and to like sell this whole thing, to be able to have people identify as their avatars correctly. And
by the way, one concern that I've always wanted to express to you that I haven't had not always, but of something I've been wanting to express to you that I haven't had a chance to yet, and I'm really realizing is kind of relevant here, is like, one thing that I'm not excited about is like being able to mask certain emotions or movements or feelings, right? Like, with hand tracking and eye tracking and face tracking and all this stuff, like I do a lot of meetings in VR now with my new job. Yeah. And sometimes I yawn. Doesn't mean I hate everything that's happening, but sometimes the yawns start pouring out. Maybe I'm not, maybe what they're saying is boring me or something. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, like, I don't want people to see me being like, see my eyes get heavier and like I'm looking around the room, like there's like some privacy that gets lost even in between our interactions, that like I have to be okay with, or like, what if I don't know.
But in this new digital world, that could be something that we don't have to compromise on, right? Eventually, as we're figuring out eye tracking and with the machine learning, understanding our different facial expressions, we could potentially say, if I make this expression, show it as this one instead. Like, replace it with this. If I go to yawn, smile or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is all, like, anything is possible in there. Yeah. This is, anything's possible in with the digital representations of ourselves, right? This is all computerized, digitized. We can do anything. Just because you have an avatar that represents you exactly like these new meta avatars, right, with the crazy camera system, doesn't mean you can't go in and like brush yourself up, like Photoshop your avatar up a little bit, right? And kind of take out only the things that you really don't really like, that maybe you're self-conscious about or something, right? Like, I feel like it's not all or nothing. There's the full spectrum that will be realized in all of this, and you'll be able to kind of change things all the way in between. So like that. Yeah, I do, because it would be a bummer, like someone says something in a meeting and you like roll your eyes, like,
exactly.
Like, right now you're
I don't want to reveal
from that. Right, yeah, exactly. Exactly, I agree with you there.
I don't know if you saw, but Google is launching what's called like Lightroom, where they're putting these pods in some like places like Salesforce, where you can, it's a light field conversation like pod. Have you seen this?
No.
I've seen it a little bit, but I haven't read a ton into it yet.
I'll send you a link about it because it's absolutely fascinating. But essentially, it is kind of it's called Project Starline, and they're bringing light field video calls to enterprise partners first. I will share a link here, but it's interesting because it looks like something straight out of the show Devs If anyone remembers.
Oh my God. Devs has got to be one of the most underrated shows of it. Like, that show blew my mind and nobody knows what it is. Like, I'm very surprised that you brought that up, because I'm always like, oh, you like Matrix stuff, you like, Black Mirror. Have you seen Devs? Everyone's like, oh, Devs.
I know, and I haven't even seen it.
Dark
so
stuff.
good.
And it was dark.
It was good. It was really, really good. Yeah.
Nick Offerman did not expect that kind of performance out of him, but like so impressed.
Yes.
And it's a journey. Highly recommend anyone watch it, because it's also scary, because I do see some like potentials of, a direction of technology could go if XYZ happens, that could happen.
Well, that's what makes this stuff that's what makes this stuff so powerful, right? Like Black Mirror. It's powerful to us, and it's so popular because we all see that this stuff this could happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it kind of, just like when you go and you watch like some murder mystery or something in the theater or whatever, right? Like, it's powerful because that shit happens.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it really happens.
You can find a way to relate to it, or be empathetic to the experience.
So that's very much like, it's a good thing though too, because it really does show people, and it kind of lays it out there like, hey, if we're not careful, this stuff could happen. So, and when you really look back to how technology has been designed, like, a lot of this stuff was all conceived by people that have that write sci-fi and have these visions of the future, and then smart people later on, when the technology gets to a certain point, look back at that and go, wow, that would be awesome, let's do that, right? And then they can. So this is all like really important stuff to kind of put out there. And that's a great show. Black Mirror is a great show. Devs is phenomenal. Go see Devs. And I gotta say, there's only 2 episodes out right now, but there's a new show out called The Peripheral on Amazon, and it's all about, like, it's another VR show, and it's super good. It's super, super good. So
I was getting ads for that, and I was curious about what it's about. I will check that out.
It's really cool. It's like, I don't know, like 70 years in the future or something, right? And where VR is then, and like,
oh, cool. So it's like the conceivable future.
Yes, the conceivable future. And you look at the headsets in it, and you're like, I can see them being like that.
Nice.
Yeah. So, yeah, and it's really good, and the actors are phenomenal, and the story's really good so far. Like I said, only 2 episodes in. Maybe it'll tank, maybe it won't, but I really feel like it's so far so good.
So,
I appreciate originality. I think there are too many shows right now that are just kind of repeating what we've already seen. So I'll give it a shot for originality there.
And she will. I saw her write it down. When Ashley writes something down, that makes it real.
Stone.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I want to compliment you on your shirt, not the one that I'm currently wearing, which is the Coffey and Code logo, which is currently available on the merch site that we have linked in the description below, which is beautiful embroidery, right? Go and get yourself one. But I was going to compliment you on your shirt. Is it embroidered? It is embroidered. Go ahead.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not too bad.
That's next level. Go buy one of those.
Not too bad.
That's really awesome.
But it's the XR Women shirt, right? XR Women. It's got the women logo in there. It looks very nice. What is XR Women? Tell us about it.
What is it? Great question. First off, thank you for supporting Coffey and Code. You can find that shirt at coffeyandcode.com. Thank you for linking it. But XR Women is a great organization. It's just a group of volunteers that have organized. Julie Smithson, Sophia Moshasha, Sarah Klein are some of the founders, and Karen Alexander.
Nice.
Really great people. They started this community, I think, in 2020, like when the pandemic hit, right? And we found ourselves in the WTF moment. They created this community, and it was a really good space for like women in the VR world to find one another, because it is hard. Like for example, here in Oklahoma, I can count the amount of women in the VR XR space I know on my hand, on a singular. Yeah. So like being able to like find us all, it was really wonderful, and understand what everyone is working on. This is a group of people of like in different industries. Some of it's academia, some of it's enterprise, you name it. But it's a great organization. It's free. We meet every Wednesday in iLearn-Virbela. It's a great campus. Jonathun Richter is nice enough to let us use that space for free. So it's been a good space, and highly recommend anyone join us. Get your avatar ready. And these shirts are actually from Lisi Linares from PR Sharks. she gave these to all of the XR women attendees at AWE. So we had a fun little after party at AWE that was wild at this like beautiful, massive mansion. It was a good time, but thank you, Lisi and PR Sharks, for this. And thank you to XR Women for providing a safe space to just like get to know other people and connect and network and know that we're not alone.
We were at that party, by the way. It was pretty awesome.
It was sick. It was like, that place was,
yeah.
Was it that one, or was it like the next day?
I think I left around 2:30 a.m. I was like one of the last.
Yes.
Yeah, we were there pretty late. Yeah.
Close that thing down.
Yeah, I don't know if that was like the same party. It was definitely the same house.
No, it was the same party because there was, everybody was there with an XR Women shirt. I saw so many of those shirts at that party. Yeah, and then there was like a big photo shoot with everybody in it in front of the house before everything went down.
Yeah.
So I am like, what do you think is the primary contributing factor for a lack of women in the space, right? Like you say, it's hard to find each other. It's not hard for me to find another dude who's into VR, you know? So what do you think is the primary contributing factor? Why aren't there more women in XR?
That's a good question. A question that I get often. It's not an easy answer. But if you think about it, the spaces that are currently occupied are primarily male dominated, right? And there's also an intimidation factor, I feel like, of technology in general and immersive tech. I think there needs to be a bit more light shown on the jobs that are necessary to successfully run an XR company. It's not just being a developer. There are so many other things, Alex, as you know.
That's what I got after.
Haptics community. Yeah. So there's that. But there's also this just concept of community over competition. It's so bizarre, just the dynamics. But in some jobs that I've had of maybe you have female colleagues that support you. Maybe you have female colleagues that are competing with you. And then it gets weird. But also it's the degree programs as well. Don't attract enough women, right? But it also starts really from a youth perspective, having access, like seeing themselves in different spaces. That's why I love XR Women. That's why I love OK Women in Tech and a lot of other organizations, is that they kind of open up the lid of here's what technology can be, and here's an opportunity for you to like really democratize everything and create a space and a path for yourself. And I did a TEDx talk in 2019 on like cultivating women's empowerment with technology, because I really feel it can break down barriers and create an opportunity. You don't have to have a college degree. Really, you can have internet access and a Chromebook and start your own business and like provide for yourself without having to like go to college and, you know, all those things. So I just think it has such a unlock opportunity for women, single moms, you know, people that are pivoting, especially since COVID hit. You know, we're going through the great resignation, then the great reshuffle. People are reconsidering what they're going to do. And the data is clear that technology isn't going away. Jobs in the XR space are going to triple in the next few years. It's such high income earning potential and sustainability. So that all in a nutshell, advocacy, awareness, support and encouragement, inviting women. Like, I appreciate that you invited me on this show. I've seen your lineup, and I love that you bring diverse voices on here. So I appreciate, you know, being a female voice in here, and hopefully you can continue that by bringing on more female voices in the future. But I hope that answers your question. Feel free to link my TEDx talk. I feel like I have some good resources there on like tangible things you can do as an individual to help bridge that gap and break that barrier.
Sweet. Yeah. And, you know, we love women. You know, Skeeva and I are big fans of women, you know, inside and outside of XR, of course. But we actually haven't had a whole lot of trouble having female guests on this show, and it's actually never been something that like we did intentionally. We're not like, hey man, we need more women on this show, you know, we better book a few. Like, we have just reached out naturally to those who we find inspiring, and it just so happens that we have plenty of women in the space.
It's definitely not 50-50 though.
It's not 50-50. It is
right.
Definitely not 50-50.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's other opportunities to have a more diverse group of people join us on this show as well. But, you know, we've basically just reached out naturally within our networks just to the people who we've known, become fans of, and followed, and been lucky enough that a lot of those people are women. Women do, in my experience, oftentimes bring insanely invaluable perspective to conversations where they otherwise wouldn't be. Like women look at things through a different lens than men often, and like I'm married and, we're a team, like there's stuff that she does that she's good at that I don't think about as often, and vice versa, and I think having as many different opinions, perspectives, and stuff as often as you can involved in conversations like this one is huge and absolutely valuable. So it has not been hard for us, and of course we'll continue to invite anybody within the space, regardless of how diverse they are, to come and join us for stuff like this.
I think people, we've had, it's so good that there's like, that people are starting to understand the power of diversity now, right? A lot of, there used to be this, people used to look at it like, oh, well, diversity and blah, 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 right? But it's like, you really got to look at this, because like, everyone was brought up differently in different parts of the world, different sexes, treated differently, right? And all of these people bring something so important to a thing, right? So companies that focus on diversity will generally be more successful, will be able to solve problems faster, because you have all of these different ways of thinking, all of these different educational upbringings, and all of these different ways of thinking of things, and you're putting it all into one pot, and what comes out is something so big and so magical. Diversity is so very, very important. If the world was all run by 40-year-old white dudes, oh my God, would things be terrible and boring?
Right.
So
more diversity. We're kind of there right now, actually. Speaking of the midterm elections, go vote.
Yeah, well, we need more. We need more diversity, and people are starting to figure this out, but we need more.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, voting. Vote.
Yeah. I'm glad that you asked that, Alex, and thank you for that question. I think more people should ask that on their show, so thank you.
Yes, and I'm actually going to take it a step further, if that's okay. So I imagine, I guess I'm assuming, do you that you might encounter women in your life who don't have the same level of understanding of tech that you do, or they don't use tech, or they haven't integrated it into their lives in the way that you have, and that makes sense and frankly will one day be inevitable. What, like, do you make it like a mission of yours to convert these women who maybe are kind of like, I don't know, like kind of afraid to get in there? And if so, what are some of the things that you say to other women who have not integrated with technology like you have, to help them maybe become more comfortable with it?
Question. I would never convert someone. I always like to provide like an opportunity for someone to make the decision if something's for them or not. But I will give them like the full unedited version of what it's like to have a career in STEM and tech, because it's all not sunshine and rainbows. Like, I don't share often, but like things like, oh, I need to speak to a male manager, or you're too emotional to make these decisions about this computer. These little comments that, or being in a meeting and voicing something, and then a male voicing it, and then it being heard. Like, these are little microaggressions that add up over time. So like, yes, there's an underlying problem, but there are also those behaviors. But when it comes to the conversations that you're mentioning of kind of opening up the area of opportunity, I get a lot of people that come to me that will say, hey, I'm interested in getting into the healthcare tech space. Like, where do I start? And I like talking to people. Okay, what is your experience? I like helping people understand how their past experience can work for XYZ field. Like, for example, someone that is in that has call center experience and has hospitality and industry experience, like they could be a healthcare technician. Like, that is an entry point. But some people, they don't know what they don't know, and these fields and ranges, there's so many options out there. So my goal is just to help lift the veil on what's out there, so people can start to get creative on aligning their skills to those jobs, if that makes sense.
It does. I, on the other hand, will straight up convert your ass. I will be like, no, there's no reason that you will not love this. Sit down. I'm putting this headset on. Like I will drag you kicking and screaming down that road if I have to.
The question is, what experience are you going to put on that person's head? Because that's what I want to know.
99% of the time, Beat Saber.
99% of the time is Beat Saber. And there are a couple of reasons why. It's not just because I like the game, which of course I do. But there's a few reasons why. The number one reason is that it does not ask the user to do anything dangerous at all. It doesn't encourage the user to move their feet from where they are planted. Like, you plant your feet and you stay there. And it also doesn't encourage the user to look behind them, to go after anything. Like, it brings everything to you. So a lot of times, like when people are new in VR, if you were to put them in something like Super Hot, which I used to do, my wife ran into our TV like in the living room because there was a gun on the floor, maybe 15, 20 feet ahead of her. Wow. You know, so she sees a gun in front of her, starts taking 2.5 steps and then smack right into the TV screen, you know, which of course I caught the TV, made sure it was okay, and then made sure she was okay afterwards. Which is sad but true. But like, that's when I realized that Super Hot is not a good not a good experience to put somebody who's new in, because it encourages you to break outside of what might be your safe little guardian bubble. So it brings everything to the user. And then the other thing that it does is it perfectly blends visuals, audio, and haptics in an experience that almost anyone can instantly understand and relate to. To me, it's like being a martial artist and a musician at the same time. Like, it's kind of like a Guitar Hero in a way, you know. It like feels like you're participating in the music without having the skill to execute the music yourself. And it's instantly rewarding. Most of the music is like approachable, you know. There's like chord progressions that make sense, that if you're just playing it on the radio, like 9 times out of 10 people stop to hear the chord progression finish. Like, all approachable music. Not everybody vibes with EDM or whatever you want to call it, but it still works for what's happening there, even if you're not a fan of that kind of music. So and then also it's just really fun. So the visuals, the audio are all there. Music is something that we all connect with. It doesn't get you to run around or anything. I think it's one of the most perfect first VR experiences you can have.
Yeah, agreed. And there's so many new music packs too. Like Lizzo just came out with a music pack, Lady Gaga. My favorite is the Linkin Park.
Yes, that's my favorite too.
I'm a Linkin Park fan through and through, and just being able to like relive those memories and experience that music in like in a virtual format is so cool. Takes me back. I'll tell you what, the Linkin Park Beat Saber pack came out after the lead singer's suicide. And Chester Bennington, yes, my heart breaks. I still think about him.
Rest in peace, homie. I was a fan of Linkin Park when Hybrid Theory dropped, you know, like I was watching the One Step Closer music video on MTV2, like back to back, you know, like I was there. But anyway, you know, for years I like sang along to the music and I'm like, yeah, this song jams. Like, I love this song. I love that song. But then he passes and Beat Saber puts out the pack, and I think I was watching Gamertag play it on his stream. And then I heard the lyrics and I was like blown away. I heard the lyrics in a way that I had never heard them before after he passed, because he basically was singing about this in like every single song. And
it kills me.
It is insane that he was like forwardly putting it all out there, like letting everyone know how much of a struggle it was, how, you know, you can look happy on the outside and it's terrible, like all of this shit. And when I saw the Beat Saber pack come out and I heard those lyrics through Beat Saber, it's like I was hearing them for the first time. And I think it speaks also to now to maybe jump ship just slightly of VR as a platform of engaging with media in an entirely new way. Like, there are people like my dad who I got into Beat Saber who never listened to anything off of this soundtrack, but now when Imagine Dragons comes on the radio, or even Angel Voices, which he added to a playlist after falling in love with that song, like Angel Voices comes on at a party, you know, where he has his friends over having drinks and he like stops everything and he just like vibes on it for a while, you know. And it's like, he was exposed to that through the Beat Saber game, and like by participating it like took on a whole new form for him. And now he and his wife both listen to these songs that they learned through Beat Saber and like love it. And they'll be like pretending to play in the air while it's like playing through the radio and stuff, you know, like they're connected to it. So I also find that really fascinating about Beat Saber as well.
Intergenerational. But also on a note, I wanted to mention on back to Chester Bennington here. I want to mention the 988. It's a national suicide helpline, mental health lifeline. So if you or someone you know is struggling, call 988. Doesn't matter where you live in the country. Great resource. But it's a good example. Just what you mentioned right there, Alex. You know, so much happens beneath the surface, right? It's about paying attention, right? So whenever I go back and listen to Linkin Park, you know, Meteora, just so many things, I hear it, and it just like, it does something to me on a visceral level. So I've truly with that and Robin Williams and so many other artists that are gone way too soon, like I always want to make it a point to like advocate for mental health and awareness and reducing the stigma of talking about it, because man, some of these artists were still around. Whew, imagine the music we'd be having.
Yeah. Amen. 988.
Yeah.
I appreciate your advocacy for mental health. Yeah. Let's see. How are we doing, man? Because, you know, we started this whenever we felt like starting.
We're there.
We're pretty much there. I think we're getting close. Or maybe we're a half hour away, or maybe, I don't know.
About 5-10 minutes.
Wow. Okay. Well, we're getting pretty close. We're getting pretty close, but I definitely want to bounce the ball back into your court at least one more time, Ashley. Maybe just to bring up something that's like really important about what you've been up to, or one of your projects that we haven't had a chance to mention yet, that you want to make sure that we kind of have a chance to dive into a little bit.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to clear space for my head because
I know we just jumped a lot.
No, this is good. I've also been working on a really big deadline. Report that I've been working on for DOL for the past 6 months is finally coming out tomorrow. Yay! Yeah. So I will be happy to send that. It's disability-led innovation in AI hiring technologies. So I also span the artificial intelligence space too, but for here we're in the XR space. But always hit me up if you want to talk about artificial intelligence. With XR, one of the big things that we're working on, and I'm super fortunate to work with a great team at Wheelhouse Group. My colleague Bill Curtis Davidson, he actually used to be the former head of accessibility at Magic Leap, and we met through XR Access. And he's incredible, and he has helped me like learn the accessibility aspects of and applying them to emerging tech. There are a lot of like standards that are out there on the web for web accessibility, but the people that I work with like are so good at melding it together. Alexa Huth, our strategic comms director, but one thing that we're really working on right now is how do we promote digital equity and broadband too, because XR is great and we love it, but it doesn't work without internet, right? Like the main aspects of that connectivity aren't possible without a reliable internet connection. And with the broadband infrastructure bill that's about to come out, there's going to be a lot of money that's going to be flowing down to states, which is great because that provides the opportunity for those rural communities to finally get internet access and experience what it's like to have that high five moment in Rec Room that you mentioned. So we're working on creating resources and really trying to convene communities to make sure that when that action happens, that it goes in the right area and it's reaching the people that need it most, multiply marginalized populations, because there's still an issue on just access on basic technology that it's a good reminder kind of take a step back. And yeah, we want to focus on XR access, but it's also a reminder to focus on the basics as well. So we're really working on that, and we'll have a lot of cool stuff coming out, and I hope to see you at CES. And in January, we are a part of a CTA roundtable discussion. Our team members have been there in the past, so I'm really hoping to make that happen. But if I'm able to see you, I can get you up to speed on some other projects that we're working on. But in my own like personal hat area, Coffee and Code, I'm just trying to bring on more diverse speakers and trying to broaden that spectrum of what I cover on the show to make sure people are really getting enough out of it and actually learn something new, because there's so much content out there these days. People are very strict about what they consume, myself included, which is why I love Between Realities podcast.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what's up.
For the strict consumer, Between Realities. When you want nothing but the best, Between Realities.
That's right.
Coffee.
You may not always want a fillet, but
I do. I'll eat a fillet every day.
It's funny that this has been a great conversation, and I totally expected this to go in like a altered state of consciousness, UFO, conspiracy theory, direction, maybe philosophy.
Well, so got another hour and a half. Let's go.
We kept it contained.
Yeah, luckily, I guess this is a good thing. You have so many different things going on that it's easy just to talk about Ashley Coffey for an entire episode, or expand on some of the things that you've been doing. It's very easy to kind of start to dive down some different tangents and different lines of thought. But, being involved in the kind of stuff that you're involved with is thought-provoking, and it starts to ask a lot of questions. You're tackling some of the, to your point, more glaring issues where there's a lot of opportunity for growth. And I think one of the reasons why it's such a good opportunity is because there aren't a ton of conversations that are happening around all of that stuff, so there's definitely stuff to unpack. There's layers to all of it. And I think we did a pretty good job of diving into most of it throughout this discussion. What do you think?
Yeah, it was actually ever since I chatted with you, I've been thinking about the whole death conversation. I was hoping that would come up today, but then we can save that for part 2.
Yes, I would love to. I love to get into that stuff when the conversation gets us there. You can't start with that.
Yeah,
it's a pretty heavy thing to go into, but this has been fabulous, and I appreciate y'all's time. I think we definitely covered a broad spectrum of topics today, and I hope your listeners find something new and informative. And again, thank you both so much for being an awesome entity in this space, right? I feel like there are a lot of different spaces on the internet people can go to, but y'all have done a really good job cultivating this authentic space. That means a lot. So continue your great work, and thank you.
Thank you. We absolutely will. If there's somebody who's watching who's like, okay, Ashley's the real deal, and I want to get involved with XR Women, or I want to get involved with, some of her other initiatives that she's been into, what's the best way to kind of reach out, follow, and keep in touch with you?
Great question. You can email me hello@ashleycoffey.com. You can find me on Twitter @AshleyCoffey_. That's ASHLEYCOFFEY. Slightly different spelling than the beverage, or ashleycoffey.com, or coffeeandcode.com, no ampersand, or just I'm all over the internet. You'll find me somewhere. But yeah, I'm always happy to answer questions and really guide people in the right direction. No question is a dumb question, in my opinion. That's my philosophy. So yeah, if someone heard something and they want to dive into it a little bit more, feel free to reach out. I'll answer what I can.
Well, it's been great having you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode, and for rolling with the punches, by the way, because we tried to schedule this quite a few times.
Oh, I know.
Multiple moving dates
an
around.
Embarrassing amount of time.
Yeah,
sorry.
But also she changed the date on us at least once throughout that too, right?
Yeah, once. Well, this is a tough.
Yeah. Thank you so much for accommodating that. Life is wild right now. I feel like I'm still catching up from AWE in May.
Yeah.
I have not stopped since December. The last December that we were in, into the new year, and this entire new year has just been absolutely crazy.
But yes, definitely thank you, because we definitely switched this time and date around on you a million times.
We did.
Thank you for rolling with those punches and getting over here and talking to us anyway. So appreciate that.
Anything for y'all. I'm a very chill person. I will always roll with the punches. I have no expectations, so I am not disappointed. And that's a great philosophy to live by.
That is. That really is. Yeah, expect nothing and appreciate everything.
Well, what I'm going to expect is that you will join us again in a future season of Between Realities, and that episode will be one to watch because we will dive straight into more of the mysticism and deep depths of our souls in that conversation, because a lot of my progression in this world has come from innately a lot of those kinds of conversations, and I feel like those conversations aren't being had nearly as often as they also should be. So we'll have you back in the future, and in that episode we will have more experiences, and we'll dive a little deeper, and we'll dig up some of that stuff that you were maybe expecting this time.
Yeah. And feel free. I'm doing a very casual book club in December on Snow Crash.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah. So I have like a very small circle of emerging tech people. Russ Gant is one of them from Harvard. And my former boss, Matt Cook, who runs the digital scholarship lab at Harvard, who hired me to be emerging tech librarian. So if you want to be in on that conversation, I'm going to do a Christmas special for my podcast and just have a lovely obliteration of really good episodes around Snow Crash. So if you want to read in on that and be a part of that, let me know.
That sounds sick. I love that book.
Let us know.
Love Snow Crash, Ready Player One, obviously. And in case it's not on your radar, The Memory Engine. I don't know if you know this book, but The Memory Engine is like what maybe Ready Player 2 should have been. It's really good.
She just described it into her reality.
Yeah, and for real. And it was also written by a member of our community, Gary Walkton, who is Immersed Robot. And he is, this book is phenomenal. So definitely check it out. It's about virtual reality and brain-computer interfacing. And it really goes in, and I think he is really interesting to see where he thinks the tech is going to go with haptics and with VR in general. And it's just a killer book. So definitely check that one out too. Snow Crash, wicked cool. I remember I listened to a lot of audiobooks when I'm on big drives, and I was listening to Snow Crash on my way to some convention in LA. I think in Las Vegas. And I remember they nailed the resolution and the frame rate of the Quest 1 in Snow Crash. Did you pick up on that?
What?
Like they nailed it. They got it exact. The exact resolution and frame rate of the Quest 1 was the resolution and the frame rate of the headsets in Snow Crash, which blew my mind. I rewound it and listened to it. I'm like, what? Wow. No way. Yeah, it's nutty. So anyway, little fun fact there.
Oh my
Great
gosh, that's wild.
Yeah. Weird stuff.
And my mind is blown.
And that's where that's where the term metaverse was coined, right?
It was.
Yeah.
Yep. They coined the phrase metaverse, which is the word metaverse, I should say.
Right. Yeah, I guess so. All right, Ashley
Good
Coffey.
stuff.
That's it. Thank you for joining us here on Between Realities. It's been a pleasure having you. And everyone, please say goodbye to Ashley Coffey now.
Bye, Ashley.
Bye, Ashley.
See you later.
And she's gone, never to be seen again. Well, I guess we just said she'll be seen again, but I don't know why that's the thing that I say. It came out one day, and it's been that. And I don't know.
That's funny.
Anyway, that was great.
It was. It's a great guest.
Yeah.
It's so awesome to meet people out at these expos and be like, yes, this is what we're looking for. Let's go.
Totally.
Form these friendships and just meet people cut from the same cloth, and then have these great episodes of Between Realities.
Totally. So. And meeting people in person is great because you have an opportunity to connect and kind of start to peel away some layers and stuff, but I really appreciate the opportunity to have guests on the show and do these dives, we got you for 90 minutes, you know what I mean?
Go.
And you're not paying attention to anything other than this conversation. So it really gives us a chance to get into some of that deeper stuff and pull away, get to more towards the core of who they are and what they're about. And, this episode was no different. So this was really good.
Yeah.
Thanks again for watching, everyone. Typically we like to recognize everyone who was live here, but as you know, we're not live, so that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and we're missing you guys right now. I'm sure we're in chat. Hopefully, we're actually. I'll definitely be in chat. I know you're going to be traveling a little bit. Yeah, and then next week we'll also have a pre-recorded episode because we will be at the Virtual Athletics League event, the New Reality VR Expo up in Salt Lake City, Utah, which, by the way, you can still purchase tickets and use the code Between Realities to receive 50% off your entry.
That's huge. Boom. If you don't know what we're talking about, watch the episode from last week when we had 2 people from the Val team on our show to dive into what the new event and expo is all about. And that's where we're going to be next week.
We'll be there
this time. But I guess that's really it. We have they're going to continue to leave everyone in the
we have 2 guests scheduled for next week, and one of them would not 1,000% positive yet that they're going to make it, so we want to kind of keep it, but keep an eye on our Twitter, keep an eye on our social media, and we will reveal that as soon as we get that 100% confirmation. So
or not, and you just tune in and watch it then.
It's going to be awesome.
Not a big deal. It's always great Exactly. It is always great here on the best podcast ever, the Between Realities VR podcast.
The best podcast ever. I like that.
That's our tagline. Okay, well, that's that. Right. Thank you again, everyone who is here watching the premiere. Thank you if you're watching on Upload. Thank you if you're listening on Anchor or one of the other audio platforms. Thank you to our Patreons and our channel members. Yes. We love you dearly. It means so much to us. And let us know what you want.
And to everyone that's subscribed. Just thank you too.
Subscribe if you haven't. Man, we got to tell people to subscribe more often.
I know, we never do.
Whatever. Yeah. All right, that's that. Okay. Enjoy your weekend, everyone. See you next week.
Bye-bye.